with another episode of the Argo stuff, and all these Argo videos have been coming out of sequence and whatnot, so I have to deal with that. So we're going to be looking in the engine bay today, and they're talking like they're going to remove some there. They're talking about they're going to lift some restrictions soon, so we'll find out about that. But what are we doing today? Well, I have some nuts and bolts. I'm going to continue to try and work on the winch mount here. I did design it a little while ago, and having talked to a few people, including the dealer, there is a bar that needs to come up behind here that bolts onto the subframe. I'm kind of playing with fire just having a double plate on the front here, even if it is supported on the back. So yeah, I really want to design one of those. And at the cost of about $2,000 to get it here, given the current exchange rate from the US, which is not great at all, that's not really viable. So I'm going to try and manufacture something. I'm not sure if it's metric or imperial bolts or UNF or UNC or whatever this is. So I've got a couple of metric bolts, assuming that this is Canadian and Canada uses metric. So I'm going to see if it's either a 10 or an 8. These are the only two sizes I could find. I don't have anything in between in my kit. So we'll see if they fit. And these are all coarse thread. I can't imagine using fine thread on something like that. So I'm going to get these open and poke around in there and see what fits. So I'm not sure how well this angle will work. We're going to start with the 10mm first, which was my guess. These are grade 8.8 and they look like they're zinc coated. Let's see if I can feel all the way down here. There's no chance in hell of the camera getting down there. Alright, there's our hole. Can't quite squeeze it in the hole. I don't think that's right. So let's try the 8mm. These are an 8mm coarse thread, grade 8.8 high tensile. Yeah, 1.25 by 16. Metric and imperial measurements shouldn't be on the same thing, but I think it's a 1.25 inch long. Alright, there's our hole. Yep, I can hear it squeaking. Goes in very nicely, and it feels like it's a nylock at the end. There's that sort of spongy feeling. Yep, it goes in without any wobble. It goes in like a full 3 turns before it meets that, so it will certainly not mismatch in thread. So we know they're 8mm, and so I've got now a box of them enough to do the job, because there's 2 on either side. So the next job I think is needing to find out the hole spacing down there, and I think I might have a trick for that. I think I'll take some blue tack, mush it onto a board and squish it on the top and take some measurements from that. We'll see if that works. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the engine bay of an Argo, we can see down here there is this chain that goes to the front wheels, and that black stuff either side is the steel subframe. That extends on the other side of the air window, or the air intake here. And if we turn our camera around, you can see the bilge pump hiding out down there. That is just under the edge of the subframe, and there are 2 tabs hanging off either end of the subframe with 2 6mm captive nuts in there. Those are designed to hold a bar that comes up and along the separation under here and supports the winch bar. So if you pull on it hard, it pulls on the subframe instead of just trying to separate the upper and lower half of the hull there. So that's the bar we're trying to make. The next step I've got to do is find a measurement of how long and what angle. And in the last video where I designed the winch mounting plates here, I did make an inclinometer, but it didn't work out right. I think I've got a much more basic method. I think I'm going to try and make a timber dummy here and bolt that on, and then put a little hinge on the top, swing it till the bar's in the right position, trim it to length, and then tighten that bolt up. From there I should be able to remove my dummy and get the measurements I need from that. Alright, so something for the Argo has showed up. Life jacket, self-inflating one, and another one in black, and a reload kit, and a kid's self-inflating one. This one's water activated, so if my apprentice falls overboard, yeah, it'll automatically activate, but you can pull the cord. So I might have to hide that from my apprentice because she'll get curious. But anyway, alright, see where we can hide these. This video is going to be a little out of order at this point, and I see muddy footprints. I've had a cat through here in the night. It's been up on my precious Argo. Now, one of the things I do have to do, you'll see this battery here, and there's battery acid all over the place here. Well, I think I'm going to replace this for a non-spoolable battery, and I think it's because it bounces around and everything. There's not much in the way of suspension in these things. Whilst a majority of it is plastic, there is a steel subframe. I don't really want acid floating through things, just for a whole bunch of reasons. So I'm going to see if I can find myself a non-spillable battery today. And I found the battery type there, so I'll do some measurements anyway, just to be sure. And yeah, we'll go and find ourselves another battery. Just as I go to do this, there's an aircraft. Alright, so we are, what are we, 230 mil by however much this is, by about 140 mil. Now I've got my measuring tape stuck. There we go. Alright, let's move on. So to further fragment this video, we're going to jump straight back to my desk here, where I've made a few purchases from my local J-Car shop, one of which is a battery that's on the floor, because it's heavy. This is about 15 kilos worth. Now, to replace that messy acid wet cell battery, I was recommended in my local J-Car shop to get an AGM battery. This is a similar cold cranking amp rating to the one that I have. It's a little bit thicker, but I think it'll replace the job nicely. And more importantly, it doesn't leak acid everywhere. Now, I could have gone with a maintenance free with sealed caps, but not a huge problem. Now, my existing one is about 500 CCA. This one's about 460 CCA, but not a huge amount of a problem. But being an AGM with slightly thicker cells, it does stand to longer discharge, and I've dropped something on the floor. It will stand up to longer rates of deep cycle discharge. So if I run some accessories or charge my phone and stuff on it, it's going to cope a lot better. But more importantly, I can bounce the thing around and not get acid through the battery bay, which is just not good for a number of reasons. And I've got my manual with it as well. In addition to that, I've got myself a terminal block, a new battery lead to hook up the isolation switch that I've got floating around for it, a bunch more terminals. I've got some small ring terminals. I couldn't buy a single rocker switch, so I had to buy a double in a panel, but that gives me a spare. And I've got some more 50 amp cable. So I'm going to get my apprentice on this because she's still being homeschooled, although as of today I think they're going back in 2 weeks for her, but she's still got to fulfill some maths and some science and some stuff like that. So we're going to see if we can tick a few boxes and get her into the Argo as well. So let's jump back outside. The first thing we need to do, take off this stupid battery cover thing that just seems to get in the way and is a nightmare to put back on, because you have to thread the strap down underneath and back up again in an area that's virtually impossible to access. So when I work it out, I'll find a way to fix that. First steps, I'll get my apprentice to do this. Can you undo the clips, apprentice? Pull that solar panel off.
Ah, I fell. I need to hold my balance.
Okay, we're trying to find a hold on to these bars. And then reach under here and grab those clips off. Okay, apprentice, we're on the other side now. See if we can reach those clips and pull them off the battery. Yep. Pull the solar panel down from the top. Okay, we'll get a spanner now and we'll pull those battery terminals off.
Okay, but I'll take...
Apprentice, we're going to adjust. You see how the shifter works? You adjust the wheel.
Okay,
Alright.
but don't forget...
Now come over here.
Share my...
Don't forget to pay attention. Watch this.
Okay.
Okay, ready? We put the spanner on here and we undo. Okay?
Okay.
You reckon you can do that?
Okay, but
Have a go.
I'll go over...
Now, I'll put the spanner on for you. Now, yep, pull it back that way.
Oops.
It's not a ratchet, just do it once. Yep. Yep. Keep going. No, you don't go backwards and forwards like a ratchet. You put it on, undo. Put it on, undo. Now we can lift that battery terminal off. Give it a wiggle. Can you pull that one off? Alright. Now we'll do the next one. See if you can get it.
It's too tight.
No, it's not. Lift your head down, poke it through the gap.
Okay.
This is like getting under a car. No, poke your head through. This is like getting in a car bonnet. It's tight spaces. Okay, now lift that up. You'll get it if you keep trying. Keep going. Keep going. Here. Grab it, lift it off. There you go. You got it. Did well. Alright, now let's pull this battery out. And let's see.
Little touch.
I think I can get it. You need to move your head out of the way now. Alright. Old battery is out.
Yeah, go on. The bad set.
Okay.
We have to
Get the new one unboxed. Right, drop the new battery in. Let's do this. Now have our terminal screws. We'll take them, put them in the cup holder. Now we need to get this out of the box. Right. So the other battery was a bit deeper than this one, but that's not the end of the world.
So you put your
My apprentice is demonstrating how to get out of the Argo, but while we've got this out, I might thread the strap underneath first. Okay, so this strap, need to get this bent a little bit that way. Actually, I better make sure I've got this the right way round. I think that's over the top. That's the right way. And my apprentice is going to make a lot of noise again, apparently. Now, let's see if I can get around this hinging seat arrangement. No, I can't. I've got to pull the floor pans out to get that. That is actually a really useless idea, if you ask me. So, I'm going to have to pull the floor pans up. I'll be back. So, now I've had to take the floor pan and the firewall out and close the seat. I can finally reach the slot under here for the battery, which I can't feel with my fingers because it's behind a bar. I really reckon this part of the design could have been thought out a lot better. This is a bit of a corner cut. I think I've got it in the slot, but as soon as I let it go, it's going to fall back out. Alright, now if I wedge enough behind here, it might stay there. Let's open the lid, come back over, and we have some strap already up here. Now this is a much smaller battery by the look of things, but energy density wise it's about the same actually, but it won't leak acid everywhere, hopefully. Let's put this on now before we forget. Alright, so we've got the strap around it in such a way that it shouldn't float around too much. And we've got loads of room down behind the battery bay, so we might shove some padding down there in a bit. Still surprised that this is like a 460 cca and the other one was a 500. And this is an AGM. It's crazy. The energy density must be very different. But anyway, it'll fit. It'll do the job. And the smart among you might notice both the aircraft flying overhead, which is a PC-21 roulette, and the fact that these terminals are square. So we will have to make some modifications to these round battery terminals. So now that we have a slightly smaller battery, one of the things that affords me the ability to do is to hide a battery isolator in here. I had been trying to figure out how to do that. I think it's going to go on the front here and stick out behind my leg. I might have to test that position and just see if that's going to be okay down there. Because I can't go that way, or I can't go down because there is a fuel tank under there. And I don't want to mount it to that plastic cover on the top because then I can't remove the cover easily. I'll do some thinking. Right, so we've got another PC-21 doing blockies. So we've got to get these screws off the other terminals here. So I think I'm just going to undo this bolt. This stupid cap thing I think can come off. It's not really going to be appropriate anymore. And that ratchet spanner is not the right size. Let's have a look at one of these guys. That's probably right. Right. I'll pull this off here. These should have ring terminals that should just go on nicely. If I can get this out of here. Alright, come on. Needs to be loosened up a little bit. These are Barco multi ring spanners. There's 4 sizes on each one. And they come in a set of 3, which is magic. Like you get everything from about 8 to 19 mil in 3 spanners. In a nice little Velcro pouch. Really handy stuff. This one's going to have to be close. I might... Ooh. I wonder if this will reach. Oh, interesting development. Well, there might be a bit of slack in the battery cable. We'll find out. Get the terminal off anyway. Oh. These all out. This can be the tedious bit of all this. There we go. Alright, we'll be back in a moment. Alright, so change of plans. I've had to pull the battery up and spin it around 90 degrees so that that terminal can actually line up. But it does leave me quite a bit of room in here. I could pack a second one of these things in here, which may or may not happen in the future. Give me double the capacity, but I don't really plan on doing much, like running a lot of things off this, other than the engine, and maybe the phone while the engine's running. So now I've got the neighbour's dog is out. That's noisy for being on lockdown. Although they did release the restrictions a little bit yesterday, or at midnight. So yeah, actually this probably works all right now that I think about it. There's probably room to run this up to the isolation switch and run the other cable back. So let's get this terminal in. We'll get these little square, special little square nuts and bolts put into the terminals and get that screwed down. Now, finding the right size of one of these. Where's my little baby one gone? Oh, don't tell me it fell in the bottom. Nope, there it is. Right there. Now, that guy, too big, too small. I guess that'll be the Goldilocks one. And it's flipped the wrong way. Nope, that is too big. My spoon is too big. That is the right one. Again, it's the wrong way. Right, that's on suitably firmly, and I think if I'm lucky I can still get the strap over this. So I got the strap over it and it's in fairly firmly. That will be good, and I'll make a little packer that goes in there, and that will probably be room for a good sized first aid kit. And because there's a drainage hole in here, it won't get full of water. This other bay, if we move the camera up a bit, this other storage bay here, when there's water, when it's out in the rain runs around the seat and drips off on this bit here and then flows down and fills up this recess. So I need to find a spot that's clear of the fuel tank to drill a small drainage hole so that doesn't happen, and we might put some sealing or foam tape along the edge here to help reduce that happening, because if I store like boat flares or first aid kit or anything valuable there, it's got to deal with being wet. So yeah, this might be a bit of extra storage space with a much more energy dense battery, so that's actually a plus. Logic still says I'm doing something wrong because I've got a battery that's half the size, but it's the same rating, so we might fire this up in a bit, but I'm going to put that isolation switch in first. Alright, so next problem I've got, battery terminal, isolation switch. Well, the hole in the terminal is not big enough. Now, I've got really 3 options I can think of at this point. Either I do a classic trick I've done before and snip this and open it up a little bit, and then slot it between the 2 washers in here, or I drill this hole out bigger, I replace the terminal for one of the correct size. I don't really have one of the correct size, so that limits my options a little bit. I might take a sharp drill bit and try and drill that out just enough to fit over there. It might be about as effective as chopping it open, but do reduce the amount of copper. So I'll have a bit of a think and see what we do. So my solution ended up being trimming this, because drilling it sounded like a dangerous affair and I'd be losing copper surface area, and surface area is what makes for good conductivity. So I'm going to do the cheap hack that I do occasionally. Now, where is it? Here. That should be just about enough to get it over there. If I squeeze it a little bit more, we'll get it. Hopefully I don't snap the terminal to pieces. It is copper, so it's fairly malleable. Well, that's going to be probably way too much. I don't want to push it too much, but that will at least go on now. Alright, I'm going to do this. Is a bit of a juggling act with the camera, so I'll do this next bit off camera. So, we've got our terminal on. I did think that this would be a great spot over on the passenger side here, until I realised the length of my battery lead. So this is going to have to double back and come over this way, which still puts it in the middle and gets it out of the way of my legs, so it's not too bad. So we might put this end of it on first, and then we'll figure out where our hole for that needs to go. And I think we need to do a 90-degree twist on this. But let's get this screwed on. Okay, I committed a cardinal sin. I didn't tape up the other end of my spanners before tightening up battery terminals. I made contact with the other terminal. Luckily I didn't weld it on there, so I probably haven't killed the battery, but my spanner luckily is still okay. But yeah, lesson learnt. I got a bit sidetracked and distracted. So let's put some insulation over that other terminal. Right, so I'm about to put this other terminal on, and I have dropped washers and nuts and screws and contacted the other terminal. I think it's probably time I called it quits for the night, but you'll notice there is a zip tie shoved under that terminal. You might not, I can't see much with the viewfinder here, but that is to hold this screw up high enough that I can get a few threads started, because the washer on this, it wasn't quite enough. Now, same spanner as before, not insulated, but paying much more attention this time and making sure to get well away from that other terminal. Keeping my thumb here so my wrist bumps against the side before it contacts the other terminal. If I do that, you will see some fireworks. I think we're almost tight enough for this battery terminal. I don't want to go much tighter. That feels very good to me. Good, no more fireworks. Alright, now to take a break. To break over, it's time to find my trusty 17mm ring spanner and put this other terminal on. Get this one on. I've done about a 90-degree twist in that cable. This one doesn't want to play ball. Let's go that way. If you get all your twists done before you put the nuts and bolts on, you find you have a much better time getting things where you want them. Now these are, I believe, copper threads. I need to be gentle with them. 17mm here. Let's hope I don't cause some more fireworks. Right. Now, if I had have had the money, I would have got a red terminal, a red lead here. But I think for the record, I might get some red tape and put that on there later, just to help confusion in the future. Alright, now at this point, I was going to get a key. Let's turn the headlights on. They're not matched to the accessory. Headlights are on. Let's put our switch in. Headlights come on, and a damn sight brighter than they were on the other battery. So, that is good. We've got our polarity right, or at least for, well, yes, it is an LED illuminated switch, so if I put polarity backwards, probably wouldn't light up. Alright, now I've got to commit more sacrilege and put a hole in here. I think I'm going to find my step drill for that. Now I think what I'm going to do is rub this on this plastic a bit, hopefully till it makes a bit of a mark. Gives me an idea of where it needs to be. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, so I'm on the other side now and I have my step tree. And my local magpies come in to beg for food as well. You've already got food on your plate, you don't have to sing to me. I have a plate out here where we put our table scraps out for the magpies, and they reward us by keeping cats and crows and stuff away, and also they don't swoop us, and they do keep other swooping magpies away, so it is a beneficial arrangement for us. I reckon about there is going to be about right. If I get this guy through. Oh, this is going to be fun. It's going to walk everywhere. Once it's through, I can do this from the other side. Or maybe I can do it this way, alright? Better to drill not enough than too much. So, magpie is unperturbed. Probably about right. One more step, I think. Come through here. Beautiful. Now we take the rubber cap off and push in the hole. I'll find some nuts and bolts for that to secure it, and we'll put some zip ties on this in a moment. But we have an isolation switch. I did bring some big bags of heat shrink out here. I'll have to find a way to insulate that properly. Now we have magpie and her mate. You can usually tell the gender of females. Let's spin around and have a look at these guys. Okay, these are our two affectionate pet magpies on our messy bench. Now you can tell there's a male and a female here. The male has the nice clean white feathers on the back. The female has the mottled black ones. But also juveniles often have that coloration until they get their adult plumage in too. But these two, we know them well. They come and go. We can tell by the markings on the flank of their wings. But anyway, let's get back to the Argo. It's zip tie time. I realised I probably don't have a huge number of nuts and bolts to fit those things, so I might have to buy some or improvise. But we want these cables not slopping around. Anything in here is going to be subject to a fair amount of vibration, so the better tied down everything is, the happier I am. And I've just realised I have a fuse box to attach to this as well. I'll think about that in a minute. I'll zip tie everything up and then have to cut all the zip ties immediately after. But we'll get there in a minute. Right, where's my flush cutters? Flush cutters to the rescue, as opposed to side cutters. Alright, break time again. Right, this time we've got some keys here, and see if we can actually start this thing up. So now I need two keys. Where's the isolation key? I'm a genius, I didn't think to find that first. One moment. Found it. So, put the seat down. Now, can I do this without pushing it back through the hole? That will be the question. That way. Alright. So that's turned on. Let's make sure she's in neutral. Handbrake is on, because I'm not actually in here. See if we can start her up and give it a bit of a revs when it started. There we go. It's going to start alright, I think. Choke back down. A bit more choke perhaps. run for a little bit. Alright, we're doing good. We'll let this idle for a little bit and let the battery volts come up. This is going to be a little noisy and my camera's in the way, but we're going to check our battery volts. Up here, where can we see these? Let's have a look at this. Alright, let's go here. 12.2. Should need to run a little bit to charge up, but I'll put the solar charger on this tomorrow as well, and it'll top it up a little bit. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it run for a bit now, but battery looks healthy. Let's just check our old battery here, 4 volts now that it's come out. 12.8, well, it's been on solar charge. Yeah, certainly needs a top up, but I can use that for other stuff. That'll be a good battery. Right, so we have a nut and bolt poking through here now, and that was a tricky 3-handed job I had to do with 2 hands, so I did that off camera, but that's nice and secure in there. There's one on the bottom as well you can't see. So I've now got the job of this. Now there is a fuse box under the bonnet that most things run through, but particularly these 2 cables running off the side here, those are to my bilge pump. I want them coming back to here. Bilge pump specifically, because if I end up half sinking out in the water, I might not be able to climb into the bonnet, lift the bonnet off and access the fuses without falling in the water. Whereas in this case I can climb into the back, level my buoyancy out and replace a fuse for the bilge pump or jerry rig it to get myself out of trouble. So much more accessible whilst I'm in the water, so I'm going to put my auxiliary fuse box in here, probably hiding underneath all of that. So now I've got to work out how to piggyback off. I'm going to take positive off this side of the isolation switch so that I can still isolate all those auxiliary things with that switch, and of course negative straight back to this terminal here with a few burn marks on it. Alright, now I need to stop because I'm doing all of this bending over at a horrible angle.